to invite up one of my friends and a person I love and respect an awful lot, and that's Ray Gaesser. And Ray may mention to you that he actually farmed a mile and south of the house that I grew up in, and farmed for my mom and dad, bought part of my mom and dad's farm, and I was proud to sell the rest of the farm to his son so he could start farming. And Ray has been, if you watch Our Water, Our Land, I think as most of you said you did, you're going to recognize him because he's Mr. Cover Crop.
Well, thank you, Neil, and you and your family have been great neighbors and great landlords over the years. I'll just start with that, okay? So in the late 1980s, Neil's mom and dad were needing someone to care for their land, and we lived a mile south of them, and we're farming quite a bit. And they came to us and said, would you like to rent our land? And I said, yes, I would like to. I would like to be able to take care of it like I do our own land, which we try to on all the land that we rent. And we did, and we have. And over the years, we've bought their farm. Over the last 20 years or so, a little bit at a time. Neil Hamilton sold the last 60 acres where the homestead was to our son Chris at a discount and a long-term contract so he could help that next generation move forward. And I'd like to thank him for that. So a little bit, my talk is about sustainable farming and what the vision, or what is sustainable farming in my mind, and maybe a little bit about who I am first. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a conservationist, I'm a farmer, I'm a tenant, I'm also a landlord, and I'm an advocate for agriculture, and have been for decades. And I think that's important for you to know who I am. And agriculture in Iowa is important to me and my family. I didn't grow up in Iowa, but we moved here 40 years ago, and it was a great move when Elaine and I got married. We didn't know anyone. We had just a few dollars in our pocket, and it was at a time again when they said young people can't get started in agriculture. And we did. It wasn't easy. It was a struggle, but we survived and we became successful. And I want you young people out there to not get discouraged, because there is opportunities, and we're going to talk about those opportunities just a little bit as we move forward. As we take care of the land and we do more cover crops and more conservation practices, there's lots of opportunities opening up for you, I believe. And Seth mentioned that a little bit too, and Joe. So the other thing is, I was going to do a PowerPoint, and I have it, but I don't have pictures with it. And I want you to paint your vision about the future of Iowa, and where we need to be. I need to be part of the vision, but not all of it. We all have a role and responsibility to play. And I also co-chair the Conservation Infrastructure Initiative with the Secretary of Agriculture in Iowa. And I represent the Iowa Ag Water Alliance as co-chair. I want to talk about that, and I want to invite you all to our meeting that's coming up next spring about our vision for the future and our plan for the future for Iowa. And Joe, you said, you asked people, are you a good steward? And I have to say, sometimes I am, but I'm not always, and I haven't always been. The picture that I should have up there was in 2010. We had been no-tilling for 20 years and thought we were controlling erosion and caring for the land. And we got that first 4-inch rain in an hour, Jerry. Our terraces filled up with water. It lifted all the residue, and they went over the terraces one and another. Chris and I were watching in our house, and we saw it happen. It started off our barnyard, where you get the most water because there's no way for it to absorb it. Started at that top one, and just kept topping the other ones. And I don't mean a little bit. I mean by that much across the whole terrace. We didn't lose the soil so much, but we lost all our residue. Couldn't let that happen. That's when we started growing cover crops on our farm. Have been for 10 years. Our goal is to be 100%, and we've been 50% or a little over half. So we grow 2,500, 3,000 acres of cover crops per year. We grow our own seed. We raise our own cereal rye, and on those acres, what I call our special needs areas, then we can do those mixes that you talk about, and it really works really well. We want to get better at what we do, and farming is a lifetime of continuous improvement in my mind. So that's our goal, and that's a little bit about me. I want you to paint your picture. I want you to think about that. And I also want to say that conservation, water quality, soil health, profitability, and opportunities for the next generation, they all go hand in hand. You know, it's about investing in our future, and it's that long look that Neil talked about. And it's, and my belief is that the world is changed by your actions, not by your opinions. So I want you all to really take action, you know? That's my message. It's about all of us. So what is sustainability? You know, it's about being profitable and providing a living for your family on your farm. It's about taking care of the land and water. It's about investing in the future, in that next generation, and providing opportunities. It's about being socially responsible. You know, it's water quality, and it's caring for the land. And it's about adapting and adopting technologies and practices that allow us to grow more using less resources and caring for our environment. So providing a living for your family on our farm and for farms. You know, we should get away from those preconceived notions about what farming and what agriculture really is. I just wanted to share a little history. You know, 41 years ago, Elaine and I were married, and we could live on $9,000 a year. So today, a family needs at least $60,000, you know, to have an acceptable standard of living. And I think it's nostalgic to think that you can farm in the same way and scale that you did 50 years ago and provide a living for your family. Just can't do it, because it takes about $60,000 instead of $9,000, you know? And most commercial farms today require $1 million a year in gross income in order to have enough money to sustain their family. The return on investment, return on assets, and the return on our gross income is 5 or 10%. So, you know, it takes $1 million. Can't do it on a small scale unless, you know, you can grow specialty crops, or you can do, consumer direct farming, and, you know, you can provide an income for your family on less total income for that. But it's not for everyone, you know. Not everyone has those opportunities. You know, you have to have a volume of people to market those products to do direct marketing. And my other message is that it takes a village to feed the world, you know, and there's room for all kinds of agriculture. So taking care of the land and water, and I want to talk about responsibility, and its response and its ability. They go together for responsibility. You know, it's about adapting proven practices that we have, you know, doing the rotations that we need to do, and caring for the land and building up that organic matter and the carbon in the soil to make us more resilient. It's about rotations, and it's about livestock, as Seth mentioned, and that's a big part of Iowa. And in some ways, I think, you know, we try to create a bad image of livestock in Iowa, and they're a big part of our making us resilient and caring for the land. It's a big part of it, so we have to remember that. And can we do better? Yes, we can. Can we avoid the smell? Yes, I believe we can. Can we move forward? Yes, we need all those things. It's a big part of agriculture. I like to talk about that circle of life on our farm. We don't have livestock. We do own a few chickens in a co-op, but our neighbors have livestock, and they have cattle feed yards, and they have pork facilities, and they have laying facilities in our neighborhood. And guess what? Our corn goes to the ethanol plant, provides the fuel for you all and people around the world to move their cars and their vehicles around. The DDGs, the dried distillers grain, the proteins that are left over from that process go to feed the animals in our neighborhood. And guess what? We get to nurture back on our farm to do that circle of life and start all over again and grow that crop again. That's what Iowa and Iowa agriculture is about, and we need to remember that. And we're doing the best that we can on our farm to adapt to those things and to use and continue to that circle of life that I like to talk about. It's really about working with your neighbors. We're just beginning to, because we do grow a lot of cover crops, we're just beginning to work with our neighbor that have cattle and allowing them to hay or graze some of our cover crops. You know, we don't have those fences anymore, but I think we need to develop like one of those dog fences, you know, where you put a collar on the cattle or whatever and you let them out there. May not work for yearlings, Seth, you know, but for cows and calves, I think it could work. I really do. They do it in Europe. Why can't we do it here? So anyway, investing in our future. You know, it's providing opportunities for those next generations. 60% of the land about in Iowa is rented. You know, so many of you own land, and we have lots of landlords in Iowa, and they need to realize that there's a lot of value in caring for the land and not having it degraded, and it raises the value of their land, but it also at least maintains it. You know, and the highest rent is not always the highest return on your investment in the long run. And if you're a landlord and you have a tenant that maybe doesn't care for the land the way they should, maybe you should find someone that does. But at the same time, you need to realize that tenant needs to provide a living for their family at the same time. So having the highest rent is not the best return on investment in many cases in the long run. And we need to think about that future and those next generations. And, you know, and my question is, you know, I think we're all in this together, and what is your role? You need to consider what your role is in this process of caring for the land and caring for the soil and providing opportunities for the future of Iowa. On our farm, our son Chris farms with us, as Neil said. He's an agronomist by training at Iowa State University. Graduated in 2008, worked for Pioneer for a couple of years, and helped us on the farm part-time. We had a plan for him if he wanted to farm. We also have a daughter, Jennifer, who teaches high school vocal. We told them both if they wanted to farm, we had a place for them. But if it wasn't their passion in life, find something that is. Well, our daughter Jennifer, she just loves music and teaches high school vocal, and that's what she does for a living. She does own 20 acres, just recently purchased that from one of our other landlords, Neil, who wanted us to have it, you know, because we have been caring for that. Our son Chris came back to the farm in 2009. He said, "Mom and Dad, you know, I really do want to farm, and I really want to farm with you all." And it was one of the happiest days of our life, I'll tell you that. But we put a plan together, and he grows into our farm at 5% a year. And so in 2019, Chris and Elaine and I are full partners at 50-50 partners on our farm. He grew into it slow enough that he could afford to do it, and we allowed him to grow into it slow enough so we could afford to get out slowly. And what are a lot of tax implications and financial implications, and so we're 50-50 partners for the next foreseeable future anyway, because I really do love the farm, and I'm not ready to give that up yet either. So that's kind of where we're at, but I just want to instill in you and share with you that there is personal responsibility. Do you have the ability to do it, and what's your response? That's my questions for you all. Those are opportunities and those investments in the future that I like to talk about. You know, it's about public responsibility too. You know, it's about financing opportunities, and it's about public research and education. I really do think we're greatly lacking in those kind of things, and why should we allow the huge companies to do all the research and then charge agriculture and farmers for all that when we could do it publicly, you know, and other countries do it. We should do more of that publicly and have it available for free. If we really want to accomplish a lot of things, if we want to accomplish if we want to move Iowa forward and really move quickly, you know, that research, that data, that education needs to be out there for everyone to use. So being social responsibility, and I've mentioned it several times, you know, the rain falls on all of us is what I like to say. So we all have a role to play in this, whether we live on a farm, whether we live in a local community, or whether we live in the cities of Iowa. And, you know, some of the programs that are going on, the public finance is really important. The personal relationship, the personal responsibility to the landowners and the farmers are really important. I really do think that, you know, public finance, we heard mentioned a little bit about I will, and I really highly support that, and I think it's something that we need to move forward. You know, in our research at Iowa Soybeans, we believe it's going to take about $5 billion, you know, to really make a good beginning on our water quality, our soil health, and moving Iowa forward for that investment. So it can't all be farmers, it can't all be our Iowa legislature, it can't all be landowners, it can't all be federal government funding. But the combination of those can help us accomplish a lot of things, I believe. I really support that. So I want to talk about creating the movement in the Conservation Infrastructure Initiative that I co-chair. I co-chair that as a representative to the Iowa Ag Water Alliance, but I also co-chair it with the Iowa Secretary of Agriculture. Started with Bill Northey a couple of years ago, and now Mike Nag. You know, and you know, we just finally got together after almost 2 years, and we put our management plan together and our vision for the future. We talked about those visions, and I want to share a little bit about that. And I really want to invite you to our meeting, you know, about our vision for the future and bringing people in. That's going to happen in late winter or early March. Don't have a time yet, but I want you all to be aware of that and be part of that, because it takes a village to move this forward, and it takes all of us, and we need to all share our visions and be personally responsible, I think. So just a couple of notes that I wanted to read, you know, about it. And our vision is, we envision a prosperous, sustainable, and resilient Iowa with healthy soil and water, economically vibrant communities, that is recognized as the national leader in both agriculture and conservation. And the definition of success is conservation practices that are economically compelling and easier for farmers and landowners to implement, and increase investments in conservation practices, leading to healthy soil, improved water quality for the benefits of all Iowans and downstream communities. I hope you all will plan to attend our action plan meeting coming up in late winter or spring. As I said, don't have a date yet, but we need to move forward, and I take it personally. You know, I do think that we all are personally responsible for how we act and react and care for the land that we get to farm here. Thank you.
Sure. We'll take a question or two if anybody has any particular questions about cover crops. He's a perfect person to ask. But how many acres do you plant of the seed?
On any farm, you could grow about 1 or 2% of your acres in cover crops to have a cover crop on every acre that you farm today. So we do about 70 acres this year, and harvest our own. But what I really like about it is those special needs 70 acres that we harvest our seed on. We can plant those mixes, or we can do the conservation practices in the summertime when it's more practical, and all the contractors are looking for things to do. It just makes a lot of sense, and I'm really proud of what we're doing in those things. And you know, we do have a 9-way mix, you know, on those acres that we harvested. It makes it easy.
So is there a question for Ray?
Costs. I do want to mention costs, and we're learning a lot about the costs of cover crops and how we can be more efficient in that. And you know, when we started 8 years ago, you know, we were thinking it was $30, $35 an acre to have a cover crop of cereal rye out there. Well, today on those acres that we've learned that we can spread right behind the corn combine and have them come up really nicely, we're down to below 15. And we're saving at least that much in our herbicide programs, not counting protecting the soil and building up soil health and being more resilient. We really have seen that resilience this year when we got a little bit dry in early August. Actually, we got a lot dry in early August, and you know, our crops stayed green, you know, on those cover crop
And Ray's
acres.
got some pretty good corn crops coming out of the field.
Yeah, I think we're going to be a record in our corn crop this year. Don't know about the beans yet. We just started, but you know, even though a little bit of adversity in the summer, our corn yields are still going to be a record for us.
We do have one, Ann? How do you kill the cover crop?
We do terminate ours with glyphosate. I hear a lot of things about glyphosate, and I've seen a lot of the research and been around the world a lot. It's been a great product for agriculture, and it really has, you know, as far as I'm concerned, as far as protecting the soil and allowing us to do a lot of no-till, it really has been beneficial.